This conference will now be recorded.
So today let us go with one more and very important module of Spring, that is Spring MVC module. The main use of going with this Spring MVC module is Spring MVC module is used to develop dynamic web applications. For what? To develop the dynamic web applications. And what is this MVC is? MVC stands for Model View and Controller. What is MVC? It stands for what? Model, View and Controller. And the main use of going with MVC architecture is used to make the model independent of view. Mainly for what? To make model independent of view. Now let us understand what is this model and what is this view and what is this controller and how this architecture makes model independent of view using a diagram. To remember, in servlets, we have created one login application where we have accepted the user input, username and password. Right? So let us go with the welcome page. We have created login.jsp, and in this page we have accepted the username, password and one login button. Here we go with the text fields to accept the username and password and one login button. Once we fill the data and when we click on this login button, we have connected to a servlet. We have connected to what? A servlet, that is login servlet. Login servlet. So login servlet is what? It's a class. So a class in which you do some business logic. A class in which you do some business logic, we call it as model. Call what? Model. So a class in which you do some business logic, a class in which you manage some data, you hold the data, those classes we call them as what? Model classes. Now, so what we have done in this login servlet, we have connected to database and checked whether that user is authenticated or not. Means if it is success scenario, we display on browser login success or welcome some name. Login success. If it is failure scenario, we have displayed on browser login failure. So the content whatever we display on the browser, this we call it as the view part. View means presentation, which we call view. So who is going to take care of this view part here? Same servlet program only. In the same model program only, we are taking care of view here. Means the programmer who is writing login servlet should take care of even the view part also. So there is no division of work here. We are not dividing the work here. That's the problem with our servlet code. Now, the same application we can develop. The same application we can develop in the other approach. That is, when you click on login, we connect to login servlet. Which is model, and if the authentication is success, we'll redirect to success.jsp page. We redirect to what? Success.jsp, which is the view page. If the authentication is failure, we'll redirect to failure.jsp, which is a view page. Now see, in this case, 3 programmers can work. One programmer can work on login servlet model, one more programmer on success.jsp, and one more programmer failure.jsp. So in this second case, there is a division of work. But the problem is, when I'm writing login servlet, I should know the name of the view pages. So if it is success scenario, which page to redirect? If it is failure scenario, which page to redirect? So when I'm writing this login servlet, without knowing the name of the view pages, your login servlet is incomplete. So in this case, your model is dependent on what view? In this second case, the model is dependent on view. So without knowing the name of the view page, your model is incomplete. So that is the problem with second case. So this is the place where we go with MVC architecture. That is, whenever we click on login, that is whenever you make a request, we'll connect to a class called as login controller. This we call controller class. Whenever you make a request, we connect to controller class first, and controller is going to invoke the model. What's going to happen? Controller invokes model. In model, we do the business logic. Controller invokes model. In model, we do business logic and we return the result back to the controller. We are going to return, once we do the business logic, we just return the result back to controller. Return result. So in our case, what is the result here? A string value, in this example, success or failure. We just return one string value. It can be a success value or failure value. Now based on the result, that is, if the result is success, if the value of result is success, then we'll connect to success.jsp page, which is view page. If the value of result is failure, then we'll redirect to failure.jsp. This is a view page. Now in this scenario, in this third case, when I'm writing model program, I should not worry about the view part. I need not worry about what? View pages. So we just concentrate only on the business logic and we develop only that business logic. We are no way worried about the presentation part. So in that way, when you are writing this model is independent of what now? View here. It's independent of view. So that's the main use of MVC architecture. So in MVC architecture, what is going to happen? Whenever you make a request, it goes to controller. Controller is going to invoke model. Model will return the result back to controller. Based on result, we invoke the respective view pages. So this is how your web applications are developed nowadays. So most of the web applications, any language it may be, the web applications are developed using which architecture nowadays? MVC architecture. And there is a division of work also. So if there is any changes in the requirement, we just go to the respective file and modify the code. So the maintenance part also will become very easy. Maintenance means adding new requirements, updating the existing requirements will be very, very easy when we make use of MVC architecture. Clear all of you? What is MVC architecture? No. Very, very important statement, very important during interview time. That is, the front-end controller in Spring MVC is dispatcher servlet, which need to be configured in web.xml file. So very, very important interview question. What is the front-end controller in Spring MVC means? The answer what we should say, dispatcher servlet. Right? Now this file, this class we have to configure in web.xml file. Then Dispatcher servlet. What dispatcher servlet is going to do? Dispatcher servlet loads the Spring Bean XML configuration file. Who is loading Spring Bean XML configuration file? Dispatcher servlet. In Spring Bean XML configuration file, we configure the controller classes. Controller class will invoke the model, and model will return the result back to the controller, and based on the result, controller invokes the respective view pages. Right? So this is how your Spring MVC is going to work. Got it? Any questions? No. Here we have to just learn some annotations in order to work with the Spring MVC. Just learning the annotations completes here. So which we call Spring MVC annotations. Very, very important during interview times. So what annotations you have used in Spring Framework means you should be able to elaborate that. Spring MVC annotations. Here, @controller. Use it to mark a class as the controller class. So once you create a class, if you want to mark it as controller class, above the class, we have to just use which annotation? @controller annotation. That's it. So if you create a class login controller, if I want to mark it as controller class, simply use the annotation @controller. That's it. So this will become controller class. Then @request mapping. Use it to map the request URL. Use it to map what? The request URL. Now, like example, create a login.jsp. To create login.jsp, then in this we'll go create a form action equal to login. The action name is important here. Form action equal to login. In this, we accept username and password. We accept username and password and one submit button. Now, when you click on submit, what is the action name? See, login. The action name is login. Now, so whenever you make a request, right? Whenever you make a request, it is going to invoke what? Controller. It is going to invoke controller. Whenever you make a request, it is going to invoke controller. So in controller, based on the action name, we want to invoke a method. For example, here we go with a method, authenticate. So where we go with some logic inside the method. So based on this action name, I want to enter into this method. Then above the method, we use @request mapping. And what is the mapping name here? Login. So based on this action name, in order to enter into the method of your controller class, we use this annotation at the rate request mapping, right? Now, let us understand all these words by developing an application. Let us develop the complete application. Developing a Spring MVC application in Eclipse using Maven. The first step, since Spring MVC is mainly to develop web applications, so in order to go with a web application, we require a server. So let us configure Tomcat server. Configure Tomcat server in Eclipse workspace. Let us do this task now. Open Eclipse. Configure server. How to configure server? Already we know. In the menu, go to Window, Preferences. Window Preferences. And in this, choose Server. Runtime Environments. Click on Add. Then choose a server. Apache Tomcat 9 version. Say Next. And Tomcat installation directory, that is in our case C drive, program files, Apache Software Foundation, Tomcat 9.0. The home directory of Tomcat. Then click on Finish button, apply and close. So already we know how to do this. Then once we configure the Tomcat server, the next step, create a Maven project. Create a Maven project. How to create Maven project is, click on File, New, Maven project. Click Next, and in Catalog choose Internal. In Catalog choose Internal, and in Artifact ID we have to choose Maven-archetype web app now. This time we have to go with web app as we are developing web application. Then say Next. Then group ID, let me provide group ID as Spring MVC. Artifact ID, the project name, Spring MVC project. Package, com.spring.mvc, some package details. Then click on Finish button. That's it. The project will get created. Let me document. How to create Maven project, click on File, New, Maven project. Click Next. In Catalog, select Internal. In Artifact ID, select Maven-archetype quick start. Web app, this time web app. Click Next. It will ask you the group ID. I'm giving Spring MVC. The values are our wish. Artifact ID, the project name, that is Spring MVC project, and package com.spring.mvc, and click Finish. That's it. Once we create the project, observe, if we expand the project under this SRC main web app, you can see a file index.jsp. So the JSP files or HTML files need to be created under web app folder. But if you observe, we are getting error under index.jsp file. It's showing error. So in order to remove this error, what we have to do is one setting we need to do, that is right click on web project, go to properties, right click on web project, go to properties, and in the list you can see targeted runtimes, and make a check mark here. So for this Apache Tomcat, make a check mark and click on Finish button. Sorry, apply and close here. That's it. The error will go off now, right? So what we have to do? If errors in the project, right click on Spring MVC project, and go to properties. Under properties, targeted runtimes. Make check mark to Apache Tomcat version 9. Click apply and close. That's it. So this setting we need to do to remove the error. Now the next step, as we are going to use Spring MVC module, we need to add the dependency. We need to add the dependency of Spring MVC. So for that, add the following dependency. In pym.xml file of Spring MVC project. What dependency we need to add is, just to go to your Spring project we have created last now. In that pym.xml file, copy any previous Spring dependency, and open pym.xml file of Spring MVC project and paste the dependency in between dependencies element, paste it here. Right? And replace this Spring JDBC with Spring Web MVC. So this dependency we need to add in order to work with Spring MVC module. And if you are connecting to databases, we need to add Spring JDBC, Spring ORM like that. Okay, and MySQL connector. So in today's class, we are not going with any database connection. We are just trying to understand the workflow of MVC architecture here. So database connections we will be seeing in the next classes. So today I'm just adding only Web MVC. Clear? All of you the setup required? Now, let us go with the application now. Let us start with the welcome page. Create a welcome page. Login.jsp in src main web app folder of Spring MVC project. So whenever you want to create HTML or JSP files, we have to create a web app folder. Let me do this. Now under src main web app, right click on web app folder and say new JSP file login.jsp. This is in the form action equal to login, and as we are going to accept the password, same method as first. Is in the form accept username, input type equal to text, name equal to username, password, input type equal to password, and name equal to password. Then a submit button, input type equal to submit, value equal to login. Now when you click on this login button, the action what it is generating here, login. Now whenever you make a request, it goes to what? Controller class. Now let us go with the controller class. So for that, create a folder Java in src main folder. Create a package pom.spring.mvc.controller in src main Java folder. Create a controller class. Let me go with the name login controller in com.spring.mvc.controller package. So the package name is important here, login controller. Let us do the steps now. We have to, first of all, we have to create a folder under src main Java folder. Now you can see this folder structure like src main Java. Now under this src main Java, create a new package com.spring.mvc.controller. Now in this package, create a new class login controller. So we are having the class login controller. Now how to mark this class as controller class? Which annotation we have to use? Above the class @controller. Then this will become a controller class. Now in this, let us go with a method authenticate. Now in order to enter into this method, we use @request mapping login. So what is the action names here? Login. So based on the action name, we want to enter into this method. So we have to use which annotation? @request mapping login. Now in this method, what I should do? I should read this form data. We should read this form data. So how to read form data? By using what? HTTP servlet request. How to read form data? We have learned in servlets, right? By using HTTP servlet request. Now read the data. String username equal to request.get parameter of username and string password equal to request.get parameter of password. So we are reading username and password data from our form. Once you read this username and password, now we have to give these two values to the model. So that model will check whether your user is authenticated or not. So for that, say here string result equal to login action dot verify user. So this method will pass our username and password. So this only we call invoke model or action or service class. So this model action service, all the meanings are same here. So we are invoking the model class with a static method verify user. To this method will pass username and password. So what this method is going to do? It's going to return the result back to us. So if the value of result dot equals success, means if the value of result is success, then we'll redirect to success.jsp page. Else we'll redirect to failure.jsp page. If it is success, we'll go to success.jsp, else failure.jsp. How to redirect is by using here return new model and view. We have to use a class new model and view. To this, we have to pass our success.jsp page. So we have to create object of model and view to the constructor pass your view page. So this only we call invoke view. Similar way here also return new model and view failure.jsp. This only invoke view. So once we enter into controller based on action name, we enter into this method. Method will read form data, gives the data to model. Model will return the result. Based on result, we are going to the respective view pages. So what is the written type of authenticated method now? Model and view. So model and view is the written type of authenticate method. Import the packages. That's it. So this completes our controller class. Clear all of you the controller class? Now let us go with the model now. Create a model or action or service class login action. For this, let us create a package first. Create a package com.spring.mvc.model in src main Java folder. And in this package, let us create model class in com.spring.mvc.model. Login action. So let us create a package under src main Java, new package com.spring.mvc.model. In this package, create a new class, login action. In this class, create a method, public static string verify user. This method takes two arguments, username and password. Here we are checking. So in reality, we connect to database and check, but today we are not connecting to any database here. Okay, we just simply go with hard coded data like this. If username dot equals admin and password dot equals admin, means if my username is admin, password is also admin, then we are going to return result as success. Else will return failure. A simple hard coded data. Tomorrow we go with the database connections, how to connect to databases in our Spring application, everything, we'll see that. Right? So when you call this method, it's going to check whether our user is authenticated or not here. Now, come back to controller class, import the package for login action. Import the package here, com.spring.mvc model login action. So the controller is ready, model is ready. Now we have to create view pages. Create a view page, success.jsp in web app folder. Create one more view page, create a view page, failure.jsp in web app folder. Let us create the view pages. So under src main web app, right click and say new JSP file, success.jsp. Now, one more point. Once I connect to success.jsp, I want to give this username value. I want to give this username value to this success.jsp. How to give is, say here, comma, the parameter name and the value of it. So using this username, we can read the value of your username. Now in success.jsp, we'll say welcome and take the value of username. How to take it? By using expression tag of JSP request.get parameter of username. So this is the way to read the username value. Then we'll create one hyperlink. Click here. Here to login. So this here will become hyperlink. So when you click here, it will connect to login.jsp page. Welcome page again. Now create failure.jsp. Right click on web app and say new JSP file. Failure.jsp. Here we'll simply say login failure. Create hyperlink. So when you click here, it will go back to again login page. So this completes our view part. So we have done with the controller, action and view pages, the model and view pages. Clear all of you the application? Now, what is the front-end controller of Spring MVC? The front-end controller is dispatcher servlet, right? Dispatcher servlet is the front-end controller in Spring MVC, which we have to configure in web.xml file. Now, let us do this step now. One-time process only. Update web.xml file present where in web.inf folder. It's in Spring project. There is src main web app web.inf folder. Right? To configure Spring MVC front-end controller dispatcher servlet. So go to this under src main web app web.inf. Under that you can see web.xml file. Now here we have to configure the Spring MVC front-end controller like this. Servlet name Spring MVC name, then servlet class. It is a front-end controller here, dispatcher servlet. This dispatcher servlet is a class present in the package org.springframework.web.servlet.dispatcher servlet. Load on startup is what means once the server gets loaded, it's going to load this dispatcher servlet. Now go with mapping, servlet mapping, servlet name, Spring MVC, URL pattern. That means for any URL pattern, it should load dispatcher servlet. That's meaning here. Now, very important point. The dispatcher servlet loads Spring Bean XML configuration file. But did we provide the name of Spring Bean XML file here? No. Then how dispatcher servlet knows what is the name of the Spring Bean XML configuration file? So this is very important intro question. What should be the name of Spring MVC configuration file? Okay. So create a Spring Bean XML configuration file. How the name should be Spring MVC -servlet.xml in web.inf folder. MVC-servlet.xml. So why the name should be like this? Why the name is like this is in web.xml file we have given this servlet name. No, this one we should take. So what is the name we have given? Spring MVC. So in our file also the file name should be Spring MVC. We have to take that same name -servlet. If in this XML file here if I go with xxx, here if I go with xxx, then in our file name should be here, we have to write here xxx. So whatever the servlet name we have taken, that same name we have to take -servlet.xml. That should be the name of your Spring Bean XML configuration file. In that way, your dispatcher servlet loads the Spring Bean XML configuration file. So I'm documenting the name of the Spring Bean XML configuration file should be servlet-name-servlet.xml, where servlet-name is the servlet name given in servlet name element of web.xml file. So this point is very important. Remember this. This point is very important for intro time. Let us do this step. Right click on web.inf and say new other XML file. How the name should be? Spring MVC hyphen servlet .xml. Now take the template. Take the template of Spring MVC. I'll be sharing this Spring MVC configuration XML file template. Just copy this piece of code. Come back to the XML file and paste it here. Remove this code and paste. Nothing to do any changes here. So just we have to say here. So this one is to use annotations. Whenever we want to use annotations, what I said in the last class, we have to use the element annotation hyphen config. Okay. Then here we have to go with one element ctx component scan. Base package is com.spring.mvc controller. So in this package, we provide the controller classes here. In base package, provide the package name where controller classes are present. Right here, we have to provide the package name where controller class is present. Now see, let me elaborate how the flow goes. When you run this login.jsp, when you make a request, it loads what? Web.xml file. In web.xml file, by using this dispatcher servlet, it loads Spring MVC configuration file. In Spring MVC configuration file, we have provided the package name where controller class is present. It will identify the package, goes to controller class. How it knows that this is controller class? Using @controller annotation. Now based on the action name, it will enter into the method. So in this method, we are reading username and password and we are invoking model. Model will return the result. Based on the result, we are going to the respective view pages. So this is how your Spring MVC is going to work. Clear all of you the workflow? Right? Compulsory you have to practice this. If you practice only, you can remember the architecture very easily. The final step, run the application, login.php. Now let us change the browser. How to change browser? Window, web browser, internal web browser. Now run this login.php. Choose the server. Then always use this server when running this project. Say finish. It's going to start the server, displays the welcome page. Now enter the username admin, password admin. Now when I click on login, it says welcome admin. It's saying welcome admin. Click here to login. If I click here, it will go back to login page. Now if I provide ABCD, it's not authenticated failure scenario. So when you click on login, it will say login failure. Click here to login. A simple basic application, but we have developed using what here? MVC architecture, right? So any questions, anyone? So please practice this. I'll be keep on using this MVC architecture in our applications from now onwards, right? Then tomorrow we go with very, very important module again, Spring Boot module. So once we see Spring Boot, developing Spring applications will be much more easier for us. Lot of burden is reduced to the developers by using Spring Boot module, right? Thank you all.